Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Nicholson at the ED Treatment Information Center. Today I'm talking with Nelson Vergel, founder of DiscountedLabs.com, a website that allows you to get your medical lab work done at a significant savings. Welcome, Nelson.
Hi, Robert. How you doing?
Good, good. So, Nelson, companies always have an origin story. Can you tell me what the motivation was for DiscountLabs.com and how you got started?
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question. Yes, in my case, it was pretty obvious. I've been in the hormone replacement field for around 30 years or so, and eventually I realized that in hormone replacement, not only we need to monitor our hormone levels, depending on what we're doing, testosterone, thyroid, etc., but we have to do so in a frequency sometimes because we're changing doses or optimizing that is not approved by insurance companies. Meaning, even if you have insurance, if you are doing a testosterone test more than twice a year, for instance, many insurance companies would deny payment for that test, not because there's anything wrong with the test, it's because of the frequency, okay?
Mhm.
And I also started realizing that most doctors obviously do not know, and it's not their job to know what's included and what's not included in an insurance policy. So therefore, I was getting a lot of surprised lab bills, invoices from LabCorp on Quest, depending on what I was using. Months after I got my blood work done, and the doctor assumed that it would be covered, right? So that's where we are finding in the past few years that many people, even with insurance, are getting surprised by really high bills 4 months after the fact, and they're stuck with this bill that obviously they were assuming that insurance was going to pay. So that was a first flag for me, because obviously when you are optimizing a dosage protocol for any hormones or non-hormones, I'm just talking about hormones because that's really where I started in this whole field. And I started realizing that having insurance did not guarantee payment for lab work, and or the frequency of lab work. Even cholesterol, Medicare doesn't pay for more than every 3 months. If you're lucky, every 6 months really is a frequency that they allow. So if you're taking statin and changing the dose, or just switch medications, you will be left with a surprise bill if you don't take matters in your own hands. So that's when I realized, and I started learning, that consumers in the United States also have a lot more power than in most countries. Obviously, everybody discusses and argues about how horrible our healthcare system is, and obviously there's so many problems, as we all know. But what something that we do have in this country is a lot more flexibility for a consumer to access not only lab testing, but even imaging testing, that as long as you pay cash, you're paying self-pay, you can get really discounted prices that are even lower than most copays that you would pay through an insurance company. So I think consumers we're getting more and more educated. And I reached out, I started looking for lab tests, testosterone or thyroid, online, and there were a few companies where they were charging a lot of money also if you wanted to buy your own lab test online. So that's when I realized, it is time. And most of my audience, I have a large audience in the hormone field, men and women. I have another site called excelmail.com, where there are over 45,000 guys all over the world are chatting every day about their hormones and their hormone tests. So then also they started like pushing me, Nelson, you please do something about this issue of both access and pricing, and let us take charge of our own health without having to go broke. So that was really the motivator for me. And obviously it took me a while to get a deal, because I work with Quest Diagnostics. I used to work with LabCorp, so I'm basically kind of a broker and consumer educator that not only sells the lab test, but also educates people what the lab tests mean, how you can talk to your doctor about it, and all that. We provide also the physician prescription, so you don't have to go see a doctor for for getting buying your own lab tests. However, some people may need a doctor after they get the results, which we email to them, and they start getting worried about, hey, is it too high? I'm too low. What am I going to do? And they need a doctor. So we also take care of that side. We can refer people to doctors around the United States to get some treatment after they see their results, and they start getting concerned about the fact that they need treatment.
Great, great. Yeah. And I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. Um, we You talked about cost being one of the original motivators, the fact that this is not covered by insurance, and labs are charging a lot of money. I assume you've negotiated some broker deals, and how does your pricing compare to what someone would pay if they walk in off the street or if their doctor referred them?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, my company is called Discounted Labs, or you can also say Discount Labs because I also own that brand. So the brand says it, right? I'm promising by just the brand name that I'm providing discounted prices. So I'm probably one of the lowest cost providers in the online direct to consumer lab testing field. I'm doing it on purpose, keeping my margins very low. So that people can access. I could make obviously a lot more profit, but I would not be a discounted labs company, which is really my point was to increase access and self-empowerment. I have seen it all. I've seen people that forward me their surprise bills, right?
Mhm.
um, that, for instance, for a panel, because I not only sell single tests, obviously like a testosterone test, but I sell what we call panels, which are bundles of different tests that I create depending on the condition. And I have been around for 30 years, so I know more or less what doctors are prescribing as a bundle, meaning, you have testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin, bioavailable testosterone, thyroid. Sometimes they combine thyroid because the symptoms are very similar, low testosterone, low thyroid. So I created different bundles for men on testosterone replacement, bundles for women that are premenopausal, bundles for women that are postmenopausal. So what I'm trying to say, the bundle, basically, I've seen a change. For instance, my prices are around 20% or less of what you would be charged in a surprise bill later on by any of the lab testing companies. Okay, so it is a substantial savings. In many cases, as I say, would be even lower than the 20% copay that some insurance policies have. So yeah, so I'm very proud of that. I really believed, and I have enough evidence to say that I was the market disruptor when I came in 7 years ago. Most of the companies that compete against my company were really their margins were incredibly high. And as of 2021, we definitely can say everybody's lowered their prices. So I'm proud of that. I think that's a big accomplishment to be the market disruptor for pricing, because there's still enough margin to be made. But obviously, I'm a small company with lower overhead, so I can transfer that savings to the patients.
That's great. That's great. So, how are your patients coming to you? Where are doctors referring them, or are you promoting this through Excel mail? How do they find you?
It's a very interesting question. I've been finding out, well, it's been 7 years, that most people, I sit, next to somebody on a plane, for instance, or, I'm just having a chat at a party, right? And people say, what do you do for a living? And I start explaining what my company does. And they look at me, it's like, I didn't know you could do that.
Right.
Really? I didn't know you could buy your own lab tests. Almost 99%. So my biggest challenge as a marketing guy, because obviously I have to market, I do my own marketing too, and educational stuff, writing articles and all that, is to tell people, hey, you can do this, and you don't have to go see a doctor. You can do it online, like you buy a pair of shoes, on Amazon. And that has been the biggest challenge, obviously, just letting people know that you can. Like, people don't know, for instance, another example outside the blood testing field, that your doctor prescribes a CT scan and they want to charge you a copay of $400, and you can buy a CT scan for $250 out of pocket, less than your copay. So it's the same. There are many options in the United States. It's the only country that has this, where a self-pay patient or consumer has can shop around and actually beat the copays of insurance. And obviously, if you don't have insurance, it's a moot subject where you're going to save something. So that is my biggest thing. How do I do that? How do I bring people, besides just talking to them on a plane or a party? I have a platform called excelmail.com. That's a men's health platform. It's 11 years old. Obviously, there are people, I educate people and guys on the bundles on what you can do. I have a group on Facebook, two groups, one for men called Testosterone Replacement Discussion that has like 20,000 men obviously there. I have a group for women, Women's Health and HRT on Facebook, probably 7,000 women. So I do it by outreach within networks that I create because obviously those people are coming to those platforms seeking information. They're really a little bit ahead of the regular consumer. They're more educated. That's why they find those platforms like forums and groups. So there, that's the easiest way. Obviously, I don't even have to pay for that marketing because really that's I'm actually moderating those platforms and the regular Google ads and all the other things that most companies do. But I have to say the biggest marketing is obviously something every company has to do. But in my case, I have to also educate patients that yes, you can do this. And yes, this is not a gimmick. And yes, this is, it is, the testing is the same test you get at your doctor's office, the same companies, the same CDC certified, because the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, actually standardizes and certifies all these companies, making sure that people are doing the right lab testing and the right methodology. So but I'm lucky because I have platforms, consumer platforms that all my competitors don't have, because I come from the world of from the networking world. My background is really in HIV, and that's my own personal. Anybody can Google my name, but I've been HIV positive for 37 years, and I had cancer 6 years ago too. So I was also getting hit with different lab testing bills back then. So my health challenges, even though I'm 62, also have opened my eyes that if you're lucky enough, and people are going to probably criticize this, to live in the United States, you have options beyond just accepting the limitations of insurance and their opinions on what's reimbursable and not. Leaving that decision up to your doctor is dangerous because doctors really do not know what's covered and what's not. They learn after a few years when they start getting their patients to complain, hey, you prescribed this and, I had to pay myself. So that's how they learn. But so yeah, it's marketing and educating people. My site has a blog where I publish every week articles about different lab tests and what they mean. Like men are very concerned about estrogen, and women are concerned about testosterone, believe it or not, having high testosterone. So it's all about myths and a lot of myths and misconceptions out there, especially when it comes to hormone levels, which is really, I think, my strongest niche.
Mhm. Now, you touched on something very important there. I know that when my doctor prescribes lab tests and I get the test results, and then I have to sit down with my doctor and have him explain them because I get a bunch of numbers and I really don't know what they mean. Do you provide educational information or ways to help people understand the test results of the packages that they're getting?
Yes. Well, first of all, I have to clarify that, my company does not provide medical advice.
Right.
We have doctors. Obviously, I have doctors in my board that have to approve what we call any critical values. For instance, if somebody comes back, their results come back with a very low blood sugar, very high blood sugar, or low potassium, for instance, very life-threatening. They're life-threatening values, obviously, that are flagged by Quest Diagnostics or LabCorp, and we're sent an alert. Hey, we just tested this. This is critical. the patient has to be contacted. So we have, on our board over 14 physicians that have licensing in 34 states, 32 states we have right now, 32 states. We don't serve New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island because they have legislation there that does not allow direct to consumer lab companies like ours, like myself, like mine. But and when it comes to critical values, we do contact through the doctor, the patient that bought or the consumer that bought the test to alert them that they need to go to a primary care doctor right away to get
Right.
whatever issue is. That's what we call critical value alerting. When it comes to just general information, we do send, when we send results, we send resources like the blog articles where they can search the lab test that they're actually getting information about. And we also, as I said, offer the a referral system to clinics so they can make more sense of their lab testing. So that's a good question. We're limited on providing medical advice because obviously that's something we don't do. We're about to add, I'm working on that right now, a menu item for people to purchase a lab interpretation session with a nurse or a PA. In some cases, because MDs usually are busy doing other things, so it is legal, obviously, in this country, more than clinically justified for a clinician or a nurse, practitioner, or a PA to do that. So we're about to add that menu item so that people that may feel like they would like to have a 20-minute discussion on Zoom with a clinician to discuss.
Wow, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you touched on this earlier, but I want to come back to it because I think it's very important. You are working with established testing companies. You don't have a chemistry set in your back room. So consumers know that they can trust these test results because they're working with labs that are monitored and certified by government agencies. Is that correct? Can you
Yeah,
elaborate on that a little?
yeah. Quest Diagnostics is the second largest lab network in the country after LabCorp, and the Center for Disease Control has a CLIA, Clinic Laboratory Empowerment Improvement and Amendment. It's called. It's a law that basically makes them responsible for testing, standardizing, making sure that all these companies are providing a lab test value that is close to what reality should be. So, and that they do that every year. They actually spot test them, like the FDA sometimes does it with drugs, for instance,
Mhm.
just to make sure that they're following standard practices. So that usually, people know their brand Quest Diagnostics or LabCorp. It's not like they're not. No, most of the time you know it because that's what comes back when you get a surprise bill or your doctor is prescribing. So most doctors either use LabCorp or Quest, and we are using Quest Diagnostics right now. Um, and I like Quest in particular because Quest has a beautiful reporting system in which you provide to the consumer a graph of the lab test values, especially if you have done the testing before. So you actually can see on a color graph where your cholesterol has been or your testosterone. And that really helps. That's something that only Quest has. So there's a visual already trend that a patient can see. What's happening with the internet, as you well know, I come from the days where the internet was not available, so you have to go to a library. But see, the internet has provided us as consumers information. You can search low testosterone, high testosterone, thyroid hormone levels, and you'll find a lot of information on the ranges and what they mean and all that. That has really empowered consumers to know what to expect and educate themselves about every lab testing. So I think this whole thing on direct to consumer, especially in lab testing, has come at an age where we have what 25, 30 years of Google searches, that are educating people, and usually the people that come to sites like mine are educated. They have done a little bit of research on their condition, on most of them really have a physician They're just doing this self-monitoring because they already know more or less what to look for. They're changing doses, as I said, a statin or call it testosterone treatment, or I mean, females are taking obviously estrogen, progesterone creams, and all that. So they are people that frequently monitor their blood work. I would say 90% of the customers are self-empowered, self-educated, have done a lot of reading. They do testing on themselves every 3 to 6 months. They know their trends. It's a highly educated patient population, and the testing is not expensive. You can check your cholesterol, your lipids, for like $24. And I think an insurance company will probably charge close to $400 for the same test, right? So that's really where the striking thing happens. Or you can check your blood sugar and your liver function, kidney function for $26. So people, once they find out, that is the big if. Once somebody finds out that you can do this in this country without breaking any laws, it's all legal. That's like the biggest hurdle I have in reaching out to people. They know really this can be done, really. And how does this work? Well, you just go online and buy it with a credit card. You get a lab request, a form that you download and print. You take that form to the closest Quest Diagnostics lab. They take your blood, and a few days later, you get an email alert saying, "Hey, here are your results. And here are your results. Click here if you want to find out more about what they mean, and click here if you need a doctor." So that's what we do. Um, so it's a very fulfilling thing for me. I have to say this. I've done many things in my life, but I think this is close to increasing access to people. Access to health is my goal. It's my mission. All companies. I'm about to launch hormone clinic directory also, where people can search their doctors close to their area that can treat not only men or women with testosterone, thyroid, et cetera, et cetera. So, and believe it or not, there is no such a thing in the world right now. You would think there is. You have directories for everything. So that's something else that is going to increase access to treatment. And as I said, that's my goal in life. Every company to follow that mission.
That's great. That's great. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Discount Labs?
Well, yeah, we provide a resource tab there. I wrote an illustrated book, like 400 pages on testosterone for men, offering it there for free. So that's even if you don't buy any lab testing, I would really love for people to have the free book. It's a download, it's a PDF file. Um, we also focus a lot, and this is something that most consumers don't know. There, like for instance, testosterone. Let's use testosterone as an example. There are two types of testosterone tests. The ECLA test, a basic immunoassay, is the cheapest test, and it's pretty precise. It's what's being used for many years, but it doesn't do very well when the testosterone levels are very low or very high. So there's another assay called liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry based. You pay probably $7, $8 more, and it's very precise. It can test very low levels of testosterone and very high levels, which happens when somebody's overdosing, obviously. And it also does not present any interactions. For instance, there's a hair loss supplement that many men are taking, or women, called biotin. Biotin, it's over the counter and can affect the results of immunoassays, like thyroid testing. So this liquid chromatography assay does not have interactions like that. So I focus on that type of assays. Why? Because it's the most precise. It's only around 6, 7 years old. The technology is a little more expensive, but you are sure you're getting the right value. Because even though the CDC, checks and standardizes these companies, assays have improved. Assay technology has improved to be more precise, and so that's something that most I would say most men or women don't know that there's not only one type of technology to measure a hormone level. There are
Hmm.
at least two. And I'm not saying the old technology is bad. It's just, and it is cheaper if you have financial restrictions. But liquid chromatography is now the gold standard. And a lot of companies out there are not really differentiating them or even explaining what that means. And I think I do a better job at that too.
That's great. That's amazing. Well, this has been very educational. I have to admit, I did not know until I saw one of your posts on Facebook. I didn't know that direct to consumer testing was something that was available. So, I'm one of those people that would have been sitting next to you on the plane getting the explanation.
There's
And
a lot of direct to consumer now, especially in your field on ED. People are having direct to consumer. Obviously, companies that provide ED meds online, and you've seen all of them, I'm sure, the apps and all that. And there's direct to consumer, obviously, like I said before, imaging that you can buy a CT or X-ray for a discount price. They're direct to consumer, obviously now telemedicine apps, where if you're having a cold or something, you can see a doctor from your home and get a prescription sent to their closest pharmacy.
yeah,
So this been obviously that happened before COVID, but I think COVID has made all this explode and accelerate the access from home from
mhm,
home to in many ways. So in a way, COVID has been the worst thing that's happened to obviously us in many ways. But it's also that's one of the good things that is coming from this quarantine that we've gone through, and people still needed access to healthcare somehow.
no, I agree. I agree. All right, Nelson. Well, thank you very much. Been really informative, and I'm sure that my audience is going to be very excited about trying out Discount Labs.
Thanks for having me, Robert. You have a nice Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's it for this time. If you have questions or topics you'd like to see us cover, use the contact form on our website. Till next time, bye.